Okay, so here we have a histogram. This is, let's go ahead and say these are the hours a sample of students spend on school outside of their general class time. Okay, and let's call this per week, maybe. Okay, all right. And if I asked you guys to pick one number that describes what this histogram is telling us, what number would you pick? 5? Anyone disagree with 5? Why 5?
Because that has the highest frequency.
Okay, so 5 was the most frequent. It's probably that median, right? It's probably relatively close to the mean. Okay. What if instead I asked you to pick 2 numbers to describe? 6? This is not the 2 I would pick. 5 and 6. 3 and 5. Why 3 and 5?
Most and least common.
Okay. 3 and 7. Why 3 and 7? So it shows 3 and 7 show all possible responses, right? Okay. So the idea here is on the left, as we're talking about like, if we have to pick one number to summarize everything, what we want to do is pick something that's called a measure of center. And we love measures of center because they help us decide, like, what is a typical observation in this particular context. Okay? The 3 and the 7 are starting to get at, like, I think it's a pretty telling to be like, oh, all the observations are within 2 hours of that center, right? Okay, so we're starting to think through measures of spread. And measures of spread kind of help us understand the predictability or the amount of certainty we have in a world of uncertainty, right? Because we have variation, right? Not everybody spends the same amount of time. So the measure of spread is a measure of like how certain or uncertain we are about what a typical response might look like. Okay? All right, so we're going to talk about several different measures of center today. So today I'm focusing on measures of center. And the mean is a measure of center. It is what you guys think of the average, but really all measures of center, or sometimes we'll say central tendency, are an average. They're just a different calculation of the average. So we use the word the mean instead of the average. But in your guys is what you guys think of as the average is the mean. Okay? How do I calculate the mean? Add all observations and then divide by the number of observations. And guys, I would like you, unless said otherwise, I would like you to round the mean to 3 decimals. Obviously, if it's like 2.5, you don't have to put 2.500, okay? But when it's like a long, annoying one, please round to 3 decimals. Okay? All right. Now, we have I want to go over just some different symbols. We have 2 different symbols we use to describe the mean. Okay? Because whether or not our mean is of a sample versus our mean is of a population are two different things. Okay? So the symbol we use to communicate that our mean is from a sample is an X with a line over the top. The name of that symbol is X bar. The symbol we use for the population mean, that looks like an M, it is a mu. It is the Greek M. Usually we add a little like flourishes to it. Okay?
How do you distinguish, like, why is like a sample mean like repeating?
It's not repeating. It's just that is the symbol. Like, we use these two symbols so that we're communicating whether we're talking about the mean of a sample versus a mean of a population. So we're not writing out sample mean versus population mean because they are different, and understanding those differences is a huge piece of what happens second half of the course. Okay. All right, you guys, imagine we took the average age of everybody in this room. What do you think it's going to be?
17-ish.
Sure not. Sure not. I bet it's in the 20s. You got an old lady in this room. Yeah?
Wait, I forgot.
Like practically a senior citizen at this point. Okay? So if we did the average of everybody in this room, I would bet it's roughly 20 to 21 years old, based on like my age compared to your guys' age. Would that be a good representation of the center of this room? Okay, so the mean, an important idea is the mean is not resistant to outliers. Or outdialers, if you want to, listen to me.
Would median be resistant?
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a second. Now, the median age in this room is probably, 17 and a half, 18? Yeah? Does my age influence the median at all?
No.
No, because whether my age was 19 or 43, I would still be the oldest, right? And if I flip-flopped and we brought the really old guy over, like really old, right, then that would be a completely different scenario, right? Like, his age would affect the mean, but it would take it even higher, right? Probably to 22 or 23, but it wouldn't change the median at all. Okay, so outliers don't influence the median. That's why we use both. Okay? Speaking of the percent, okay? Median, what is the median? It's the middle number. When? In increasing order, that part is really important. I can't spell to save my life today. It's like my brain is thinking faster than my pen. Okay? There's really one symbol you need to know for the median, and that's the one the calculator will give you, which is really just shortening it to the med, or med, depending on, phonics. Okay? There is another symbol. You might see it in future courses if you take more stats, and it's an X with a tilde over top, pronounced X tilde. I'm never going to really use that. I'm going to use median, but I've seen it that way in the past. And it is very resistant to outliers. So far, anything you didn't know before? Great.
I have a question for the sample mean and the population mean, are we gonna like go over more like specifically when to use those?
If your data is coming from a sample, you use the X bar. If your data is coming from a population, you use
Okay.
mu. Okay, mode. What do you guys know about the mode? It is the most frequent. Sometimes you have lots of modes. Sometimes you only have one. Sometimes you have 0 modes. If every number happens once, you don't have a mode. Cool? It's not necessarily my favorite measure of center. Okay. And then these next ones are the ones that might feel a little bit like you've never heard of them before. Like, has anybody heard of a trimmed mean? I haven't heard of a trimmed mean until I read what I was supposed to teach you in this course. And I've been teaching statistics here for 12 years. Cool? But it's a pretty decent idea, okay? And so what a trimmed mean is you cut out some data values. You cut out the highest, lowest of some given. So you might cut off the highest 10% and the lowest 10%, which is one of the ones we're going to do. Okay? And then calculate the mean. If we did a trimmed mean for the ages in this room, we would cut out who? Meister and probably Ronan, I would think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would that take care of like the influence of outliers on that mean? Did you guys see the purpose of this trimmed mean? Okay. And then a weighted mean is an estimate based off of a frequency table. Geez, OPs. Does anybody want to make fun of me again? It's bad today, huh? The worst when I have mistakes like that, it's not that I don't know how to spell it. All right, so what's the best measure of center? The mean?
Trimmed mean.
Yeah.
Trimmed mean or median.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't know that was coming.
Depends.
That's
Depends.
why, that's why I added the or. You know, it could be.
If you have outliers, we like to use the median. If there are no outliers, we use the mean. Now, comparing the mean to the trimmed mean could tell you the impact of those outliers quite a bit, right? We use them all. They all have different purposes, but the typical ones we use are the mean and the median. And how do you decide whether or not you should be reporting the mean as the measure of center versus the median? Usually depends on do you have outliers or not. Okay? All right, so let's do an example. Your calculator is going to give you a huge amount of these values. You just need to know how to do it. So the rest of today is mostly in examples of how to find each of these things. Okay? So let's go ahead and add a video. No. Why can't I move just the video? You guys, what's going on? Why can't I just move it? There we go. Is that big enough that you guys can see it? All right. And then did I hit record yet? No. All right. All right. So the first thing we need to do is be able to use our calculator. Means we have to tell the calculator our observations or our data. Okay. So most of the students in the morning class, or you guys are also in morning class. Most of the students in the second period class just needed a refresher on how to do this. Okay. So we want to do statistics, right? So go ahead and hit stat. And you have a lot of options, but before we do anything is we want to edit the data that's already in our calculator. So go ahead and hit edit.
Wait, where's?
The stat button is underneath the delete button. It says stat on. Okay? All right? And so go ahead and edit, and you're just going to type in that list of numbers. I'm obviously going to clear out what I already have in there. Do you guys need help knowing how to clear out these lists?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So to clear out the list, the one thing you are not going to press, do not press it, is delete. Okay. You can delete things. I guess technically if you wanted to go line by line, you could just hit delete over and over and over again, but that's pretty annoying. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go up and highlight the top of the list. So notice, so I'm not in one of the lines on the list, I'm in the header. Okay? And notice it says this, and it has the list of numbers here. Okay? If you hit enter, and then clear, because you want to clear everything that's there. And hit enter, it'll clear out the list. Okay? And we're just typing it in. Don't worry about the order. The calculator's smart enough to put them in order. I'm going to show you how it does that, because there's reasons why you might want to.
Have it clear?
So you can go up so that all of them are listed here. And then hit enter. And then clear. So you had hit delete at some point, I think. So that's why there wasn't an L1 numbers.
Thank you.
Everybody got it in? All right, so the first thing I do want to show you is your calculator's smart enough it can sort your data for you. So go ahead and hit that stat button again. You notice you'll have two options, sort A, sort D. Sort A is sort in ascending order. Sort D is sort into descending order. We're going to want this in ascending order. So go ahead and choose sort A. And it's going to ask you, it doesn't just, if you hit enter right now, it doesn't know which list to sort. So you want to I want you to sort what is currently listed in L1. Whenever you want to put in a list, notice that above the 1, there's a blue L1. Above the 2, there's a blue L2. So the way you tell it which list is using the second button and then selecting those. So I'm going to say second 1. It's going to fill in L1. And it just says done. But now go to stat and edit again. So you can look at it, and now you can see that this is lined up from least to greatest. Cool? All right. So now let's go ahead and find the mean and the median. So could I ask you to add all of these up and divide by 10?
Mm-hmm.
Would that start to feel pretty obnoxious? I agree. Okay? So your calculator does all of it for you, so you're basically telling it, I need you to do some calculations. So go ahead and hit stat. Knowing that you're telling the calculator to do some calculations, what do you guys think? We're going to arrow over to calc. And what we want are the summary stats on this one list, this one variable. So what we're going to do is choose the one variable stats. Okay? And it's going to say, again, it's going to ask which list do you want to do those one variable stats about. Does everybody have that frequency list as blank right now? I'm going to fix this for you. So you're still going to do second one like that.
Okay.
Leave your calculator with me today, and I'm going to fix it so it has the same commands as this one. Everybody good? Oh. And now if I said, wait, this is from a sample, right? So our mean,
Wait, do you press enter now?
yep.
For all of them?
Mm-hmm. Does anybody, what was the symbol for the sample mean?
The
Blonde.
X bar. Do we have that? Everybody good? Can we see the median from this? I don't see it right now, do you? You guys see this arrow?
Yeah.
It says there's more if you go down. Cool. Look at that. It does not tell you the mode. Cool. However, it's pretty easy to see the mode if you go back and look at the list. Because you can see, now that you have, that's why we put it in increasing order, we can see if we have more than one of things. Do we?
no.
So in this case, there is no mode. Now, if I ask you to find the trimmed mean, I'm going to give you a percentage, okay? And that tells you what percent off the top and what percent off the bottom you're trimming off before you calculate that mean. Okay, so 10% trimmed mean means we want to cut off the highest 10% and the lowest 10% of our observations. So we say, well, how many observations did we have? 10. And then I'm going to take that times 0.1 to figure out that 10%. And we get 1. So that means we're going to cut off our highest and our lowest value.
Wait, can you repeat that part?
Okay, so 10% trim means you're cutting off the highest 10% and the lowest 10% of your values. Okay, so you want to say, well, what is 10% of my observations? So this calculation here gives us what is 10% of my observations. This tells me how many I'm taking off the top and how many I'm taking off of the bottom. Okay, so now as I go to my calculator, and this is also, again, why we put this in this, we sorted this into ascending order, okay? If I cut one value off the bottom, I'm deleting the 56, and one value off the top, I'm deleting the 90. And you can do that by hitting delete. And then we just find the mean again.
Wait, how did you, sorry. How did you do that part?
Hit delete.
Delete, just like,
The highest one and the lowest one. Now, had this been, say, 1.8 and we rounded it up to 2, then you take off the highest 2 and the lowest 2. And I got 65.75. We feeling okay? All right. Okay, so now as we look at this one, it looks a little bit different, right? What's the difference here?
They're classes.
They're in classes, right? Do we know the raw data?
No.
Like, we don't know how many were 18 versus 19 versus 20. Is everybody with me? Okay, so this is when we're going to do that weighted average. All right? And so the weighted average, what you're going to do first is say what is typical of that class, which is going to be the midpoint of the class, which we should feel fairly comfortable finding the midpoint of a class at this point. Okay, so for each of these classes, let's find that midpoint. For this one, it's, I think, 21, 28. These are the one. This is the same data table we've been working with. Yeah. Now, can I just find the average of the 21, the 28, and the 35? Why not?
Well, we don't know all the values.
Okay,
Values.
but we're never going to know those values.
You can find the average of 8 times 21 plus 5 times.
Yeah, so this is like, if the frequency of this class is 8, that means it's kind of like I'm approximating that with 8 21s and then 5 28s. Do you guys see what I'm saying now? Okay, so what do we do? And that answer is, we're going to use a function of the calculator that is probably new to all of you, because we didn't do it last year. Okay, so go ahead and hit stat and edit, because we're working with a different data set. We got to put a different set in. Here, go ahead and highlight the top of the list, hit enter and clear it out. And what I want you to do is put the midpoints here in your L1 and put the frequencies in the L2. And it's important that when the midpoint 21 is in the same spot of the list as the 8. Okay, so the order matters in this particular case. Okay. And if I run the one variable stats on L1, it is only going to find the average of these numbers. That doesn't take into account that there's more in that first group than in those last groups. Okay? So we're still going to go stat. We're going to arrow over to the calculations, and we're going to choose one variable stats. Okay? Did you see where it asks for the frequency list? We're going to tell it, hey, we want to find the average of the values in L1 when they happen as frequently as L2. You're going to do, I think, L1, comma L2.
Okay.
Comma
There,
this.
comma.
I think. Yeah. Again, I'm going to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wait, what? I got different.
Yeah, so the difference is you have to tell it like this frequently, so when what you have is a list of frequencies, you tell it, hey, this is how frequently each of those.
Okay.
Alright, and now when we hit calculate. What about the mode? Instead of mode, we're going to call this a modal class. A modal class is just describing which group of numbers is the highest, which is the 18 to 24. Cool? All right, last one. What do you think we should do here? Can we put them in the calculator? And when I look at, say, this number right here, what number am I typing in the calculator here? 149. And likewise, this is 191. Yeah? And I just want to point out one more thing. Do you guys see that even after I'm done putting in the data that I can tell that this was the 14th number because of this index here that this next, like, so you can, this can also help you determine sample size if you need to do that without having to run the one variable stats. Okay? All right. All right, we got the data in. All right, guys, so can you guys find the mean? The median and the mode. How'd I do? 3 decimal places on the mean.
Nope.
Okay, what about modal class?
Wait, how did you get the mode?
It's the one that happens the most frequent. So you can either get it from the list or maybe see it here. Like you can see it in the stem plot too. Okay. Are we good? All right. Remember the stem plot is kind of like a histogram, right? Okay. So as I'm looking at this, the modal class is essentially that third line, right? Because that's the one that has the most numbers. And what weights are represented in this third line?
200 to 250.
You're really close. 200 to 249. All right, let's do the 5% trimmed mean.
Wait, how did it? Why is it not 21 to 236?
Because remember, like, this whole line is a range. Like, this is 100 to 149. This is, and it's all the observations that are within those values, right? So, if I were looking at this table, right, we would use these values, the beginning and end points of the possible. That doesn't mean we have an answer that was 24, right? We're just describing the whole group that it could be.
How did you know what the group was then?
So it's always, like for these, when you have the split stem, right, where you do 2 lines for each stem, 0s through 40s. 0 through 4 is this line, and then 5 through 9 is this line.
Okay.
So that they're the same size. So it's always 0 to 4 and then 5 to 9. Okay.
Don't think that's right.
What for your trim mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a great start. It's not the mean. It's not the trimmed mean, but it is a start. Okay, so first we got to figure out how many values are we cutting off the top and cutting off the bottom. Okay, so we're gonna say, well, we got to do 5% of our sample size. Our sample size was 14, and we get 0.7. You're just gonna round that up
There
to
was
1.
If it was 0.4 and it rounded down, would you not cut anything off then?
No, you would. I think you always round up. I think. I'll double check it, but I think you always round up. All right. So then you can go into your list and cut off. That's just telling you how many you're deleting from the top and the bottom. And then recalculate the mean. I got 206.333 to be my trimmed mean.